Louisiana Eats is brought to you with support from Zatarain's, maker of New Orleans pantry staples like Creole mustard, fish fry, and jambalaya mix since 1889. Recipes and more at zatarains.com. From our studios in the Southern Food and Beverage Museum in New Orleans, this is Louisiana Eats. I'm Poppy Tooker. Although the home kitchen has always been considered a woman's domain, we've had a hard time breaking into the professional restaurant scene. On this week's episode, we're talking with the ladies who have overcome multiple obstacles to reach the top. Chef Susan Spicer was the second woman to ever be named the James Beard Outstanding Chef of the Year when she picked up her award in 1993. Rebecca Wilkham, formerly chef de cuisine at Herb Saint, won Best Chef of the Southeast for her work there in 2017. We'll catch up with Susan and visit Rebecca at her new restaurant, Gianna. Finally, we sit down with Chef Meg Bickford to hear all about her experiences as she worked throughout her pregnancy. That baby made for some interesting times in the kitchen when Meg's belly kept her from reaching the stove. We're celebrating the ladies in the kitchen on this week's Louisiana Eats. Meg Bickford is a native New Orleanian, and like many others, it's no surprise she grew up in the kitchen. This led her to studies at John Folse's Culinary Institute, where she received a degree. After school, Meg landed in the Commander's Palace kitchen, where she really showed what she was made of, rising through the ranks to become the first female sous chef of the nationally revered institution. Meg joined us in the Louisiana Eats studio to discuss her culinary journey. Meg, I am so tickled to have you here. We're just full of girl power in the studio this afternoon, aren't we? Meg, you're from New Orleans. You've got South Louisiana roots. It's hard to believe anybody out of here does much of anything but food. How did food grab you?
The same way that it grabs most people. I was just born in the kitchen with my family. Both my parents cooked at home all the time. My aunts and uncles all cooked. My grandparents cooked. That was kind of the reason to get together all the time, and we have such a big South Louisiana family. So that was the center of everything. That was the center of conversation. That was the center of what we were doing that weekend, and that was just what was so important. I think, to be honest, that's most of the reason why I got into cooking in the first place, was not just the food and how great it is to eat good food, but more of what the food does for people and how it brings everybody together, and those feelings that you get from eating things that your grandmother used to cook, or walking into a home that smells like onions and garlic and, the starting of a roux and that kind of thing. It's more of like that personal feeling that food can bring you than actual food.
If you have a single scent or taste memory that brings your grandmother to you, what is it?
Pecan pie would be one of the first things. She used to make these tiny little handheld pecan pies, which I loved so much because you never had to share. It's like you got one and that was all yours. But she had a huge pecan tree in her front yard. So it would start with us having to go out into the yard and actually pick the pecans and then shell the pecans. And so it was like all of this work to get a pecan pie, which just made it so much sweeter. So just all of that. I mean, just the smell of roasted pecans, just that brings her back,
And you knew, I guess, in high school, at what point in your growing up did you go, I think I'm going to do it professionally?
I would definitely say it was high school. I was always in the kitchen. I was always helping my mom. I really enjoyed baking, not so much anymore, but when I was a kid, I really enjoyed baking and really thought that that was probably the route that I would go. But I would say about halfway through high school, I really started looking at culinary schools. And that's when I broke it to my parents that this was probably what I was going to do professionally. My dad kind of tried to talk me out of it for a while. Loved the idea, just hated the lifestyle. And he kind of knew what a lot of that lifestyle was, which I was naive to. I thought I knew, but you don't know until you live it,
No.
So he kind of tried to talk me out of it, but once he realized that there was no talking me out of it, both my parents were, of course, very supportive.
And so you went to the John Folse Culinary Academy in Thibodeau.
I did. Absolutely, and I loved it. And I've got family from down there, so I love that part of the state. I mean, it's just beautiful. Most of my family's from down the bayou, like in Cutoff and LaRose, and my godparents were in Thibodeau at the time that I was in school, which was awesome because there was always a couch to sleep on and a place to do laundry. I loved the Chef John Folse Culinary Institute. I thought it was just amazing. And way back then, we were in part of the science building in this tiny little cozy kitchen, and now they have this immaculate building with beautiful equipment. It's just awesome the way the program's grown over there.
Well, your whole life came along in a bit of a charmed way because right out of culinary school, the great award-winning chef Tori McPhail from Commanders came and got you.
It was pretty awesome. So I was kind of shoved by one of my instructors at Nichols to look at Commanders. To me, Commanders was such a mecca, and I mean, it was on this high hill and this pedestal that I couldn't reach, at least not yet in my career. And being very young and not really, in culinary school, I thought I knew everything, got out of culinary school, realized I didn't know anything. So I went to Commanders and thought it was going to be more of a practice of interview process, maybe, like I thought it would be a good stage and kind of, feel that out, but I not once did I think I would actually get a job. But they were very gracious and accepted me. And I started as a salad cook and kind of worked my way all the way up.
Well, you did work your way all the way up because I was pretty shocked to learn that you're the first female sous chef at Commanders.
That is a title I hold extremely dear to my heart.
What year did you become the first female sous chef?
Oh, goodness. My timeline's a bit of a blur, but I want to say probably 2011.
What do you think is different about you? What do you think set you apart that allowed you to grab that important rung on the ladder?
I will say that I have some amazing mentors at the time. Coming up through that kitchen is very challenging and very demanding, especially 10 years ago. It was a much different kitchen, but I had a lot of really great sous chefs and executive chefs and chef de cuisine around me. Chris Barbado and Tori McPhail really took me under their wing, and I just didn't give up. I showed up every day, like, all the mistakes that I made the day before was like, I wasn't going to forget them and I wasn't going to make them again, and I made a million mistakes, believe me, and I had a million hard shifts, but I didn't. I was just unbelievably determined, and once I knew that it was almost in my grasp, it just made me so much more determined, and it was like, I can't do anything else until I've crossed this off the list kind of thing. So I worked really, really hard for it. What's very cool about a kitchen like Commanders is that it takes so many people to get the job done, that you have so many people around you all the time, and it's so many different personalities and styles, and so you have this opportunity to kind of learn from this library. And so you kind of pick and choose from the people what you like from some people and what you don't like from other people. And that's why I tell like young managers that are coming up, it's like, take advantage of that, the fact that you have this array of people that you can learn from. So I was very fortunate to have all of that and to have really talented people around you. I mean, those people can cook. So I just focusing on the right things to focus on. Being a sous chef and having the information in front of you that, T and Lally share. It's like we sit down and we go over the P&L. And it's like, in some businesses, that's not anybody's business, but the people who are responsible for the money. It's like, well, we order stuff. We are responsible for the money. And we're responsible for the labor. And we're responsible for all these things. It's not just the chef and the owner kind of thing.
What an incredible thing to be able to work with T and Lolly and then consequently, indirectly, have even that touch point of Ella
Oh, absolutely.
right there.
The phone in the kitchen would ring and you pick it up and it was Ella Brennan. And it's like, you catch yourself for a second because you realize. And she, is asking for something or needs help with something. So you run next door. And then you're there for 2 hours. And it's like the greatest 2 hours of your week. You run over to bring her something. And then she's like, well, sit down. And it's like, absolutely, I will sit down,
Oh.
I've had some really, really awesome conversations in that parlor. So it's really awesome that to spend so many years right next door to that lady.
When we come back from a short break, our conversation with Chef Meg Bickford continues. Louisiana Eats returns in a minute. I'm Poppy Tooker, and you're listening to Louisiana Eats, edible content for Louisiana food lovers. Louisiana Eats is brought to you with major support from Camellia Brand, Beans Done Right, a New Orleans tradition since 1923, and with support from the Napoleon House, located in the historic French Quarter. Dishing up 200 years of history, refreshing Pim's Cup cocktails, and toasty warm muffaladas. All-day dining and private events at 500 Charter Street. If you're just joining us, we've been talking with Chef Meg Bickford, the first female sous chef at Commander's Palace. In 2017, she worked throughout her pregnancy. Quite a challenge in a professional kitchen.
So I am a selfish person. I'll be the first to admit it. And my career was kind of my baby. That was kind of the plan. And then surprise. And so we introduced Sweet Stella Marie in August. And she's just the love of my life.
Amazing how a baby changes everything.
Oh, changes everything. Yeah.
How did you get ready? Because this wasn't just like feathering the nest and painting the nursery.
No. Well, I mean, it was challenging being 8 months pregnant and working. Because I still was working 10, 14 hours a day. But I was pretty impressed with what I could accomplish. I will say that. I was. I still have chef coats that, are just completely stretched out, And it's like all of them, they have black bellies from my tummy rubbing on everything. But yeah, it was challenging. But you just kind of figure it out. It's kind of like the beauty of what your body can do. It's like, it's kind of impressive what you can do when you're in that situation. I had a lot of support. Somebody would see me pick something up and they'd, stop me and do it for me. But it was an extremely challenging time for me because I'm not used to that. And being told to stop doing things or to let people help you that was so challenging for me. I can't tell you how stubborn I was being. Steve Woodruff is the director of operations for the Commander's family of restaurants. He would walk into the kitchen and he would see me doing something I wasn't supposed to be doing or running around, or I'm like, on a milk crate stirring a kettle of gumbo, and he would just like cringe. And he's like, what are you doing? Somebody can do that. And then my cooks would be like, whoa, we offered, don't get mad at us. She won't let us help. Eventually I learned to point and, you have to delegate. But it was very hard to because there is at a point you are giving up some control.
Oh, my goodness. That was the thing I remember being the most terrified of.
Yeah.
Like right at the end, around that 8 and 9 months, I remember feeling totally helpless.
Yeah.
That's the word. I remember feeling completely helpless for the first time in my life.
Yep.
And for a woman who's used to having a modicum of control, That was so scary.
It was. And then, you think about it, it's like, well, now I have this child in this world. Like, my control is gone. Like I've completely lost it.
Well, you worked up until how close to the baby's birth?
I quit working 2 weeks before she was born. And I was very determined to keep working, but I got to that point and I just couldn't. Yeah.
Superwoman. And when'd you come back?
I was fortunate to be able to take quite a bit of time. So I took, I think, 11 weeks off.
But then you've got a little tiny baby.
It's the hardest thing.
How have you managed from that point, from that 11-week end of maternity leave? How have you managed moving forward?
I get better every day. Because it's definitely been a challenge. Like my first day back to work, I think I sat in my car and cried, before I went in. I had the most immense feeling of guilt, like I was leaving my baby. And it's like, but I'm her mother, and I'm supposed to be there with her. I'm supposed to be there with her constantly. I'm supposed to take care of her. She's just an infant, So I did. I felt insanely guilty. I still struggle with that.
How do you cope with it? What are your coping mechanisms?
Like I said, I still struggle. I still have real hard days, But I will say, and this was actually advice given to me by T. And she was like, my mom did it, so don't think that it can't be done. And it's all about what you want to do. And if you want to continue this career, which you've worked so hard to build, it can be done. And that was Ella's thing, was always quality time over quantity of time. And that was hard to hear because it's like, okay, but I want to be with her all the time, and every second I'm with her is quality, so it doesn't make sense. But T's absolutely right, and Ella is absolutely right, that it's making the absolute most of the time that I do have with her. And whether that means that I just lay on the floor and she crawls all over me, then that's our time together, but she's amazing. And I just keep telling myself that, I'm doing this for her. It used to be all about me, and now I have nothing to do with it. Everything I do is for her. And so I'm working to support her, and I'm working to show her what a strong work ethic is. And I'm working, she doesn't understand it now, but I'm sorry, one day she's going to know what I'm talking about. It's following your dream, and it's doing what you want, and it's supporting your family, and it's hard, but it's an important thing, and that's what I want her to get out of it. And telling myself that constantly kind of keeps me going,
Well, Meg, you just make all of us girls proud because you're just kicking butt and taking names.
Well, thanks. I'm having a lot of fun doing it.
I'm so tickled to have had this opportunity to hear about your amazing path, and congratulations,
Thank
Mom.
you.
What a great
Thank you.
thing.
That's my favorite title.
That was Meg Bickford, the first female sous chef at Commander's Palace. Chef Rebecca Wilkins speaks softly, but carries a big whisk. Humbled but determined, she quietly rose through the ranks at Donald Link's original restaurant, Herb Saint, where she served as chef de cuisine. In 2017, she was catapulted into the limelight when she took home the James Beard Award for Best Chef of the Southeast. This year, Rebecca expanded her role with Link's company even further, becoming executive chef and a partner of a new Italian restaurant, Gianna, named after her beloved Italian grandmother. Louisiana Eats recently visited the busy chef at her eatery to discuss her new venture. Before we hear that, let's listen to some highlights of our interview with Rebecca back in 2018. I asked her then to take us back to 2008, the year she moved to New Orleans from Boston and got her start working for Donald Link at Herb Saint.
Well, I knew that I wanted to work for Donald. I had read some interview with him, and he was talking about music. I'm like, man, this guy's cool. So I I moved down, immediately, had a stack of resumes, and I was headed to Koshan to drop one off because I really wanted to work at Koshan. But I happened to drive by Herb St. first, and, walked in the door, and just so happened to be wine tasting day, and Donald and Steven, a bunch of people were at the bar, so I just walked up to them and handed them my resume.
What did you start off doing at Herb St? What was your first job?
My first job was AM Sauté, so that was a production-heavy station. So my first job at Herb St was making dirty rice and making gumbo and okra and tasso gravy and shrimp bisque. And so, I mean, I thought I was really lucky. I'm like, man, I just Massachusetts girl moving down, first job, I get to make gumbo every day. I mean, it's crazy. Why are they trusting me to do that?
It's the stuff dreams are made of,
Really, yeah.
So how long did it take you to become the chef de cuisine?
I moved here in 2008. I became chef de cuisine in 2011.
And how does it work at Herb St to be the chef de cuisine and work with Donald in that position?
I mean, it was a mentorship, and what we do is we talk a lot about food, and we talk about dishes, and I experiment with those dishes and try things out, and we taste things, and then eventually we start traveling together. And so, Donald and I have traveled all over together, and it's a creative process that has become really organic and natural, and he's been through it all too, so he also helps me work through, my own insecurities and how I define myself as a chef. And, it's a creative relationship that happens on many levels.
As a woman managing a kitchen, what's been going on in your mind the whole time that these male-dominated workspaces have been sort of blowing up because of bad behavior?
Well, I think that, overall, I have a very firm moral compass, so things are right and things are wrong. There's no other way to me, So, in the kitchen, I've always been aggressive, but I have been, my entire life. I was kind of born this way. I feel like I didn't have to change the way that I am to fit into a kitchen. I found that environment and I was like, wow, man, like this is where I'm supposed to be, and I can be myself in this place. Awesome, and always try to do the right thing. I try to push people and motivate people every day, and regardless of, their sex or anything else. I never really saw myself as, a woman in the kitchen. I'm like, yeah, I'm part of a team. I'm a line cook, but I also made good choices. I didn't work in places like that. If I saw any inkling of anything that I didn't agree with, I didn't work there. Every time I felt like I was, treated differently because I'm a woman, I just kept going and proved them wrong.
What are your goals and aspirations now?
I'd say, they're to keep learning, traveling. I feel like, as a chef, the more I learn, the more I feel like I don't know anything.
The life of a chef or anyone working in a restaurant is so demanding. It's not like you have a lot of flex time. So I imagine there's lots of places in the world that are beckoning to you.
Yeah, and they all have to do with food. It's the food calling me to places. Do I want to see Machu Picchu? Yes. But what interests me more is going and having, the food in Peru. I just spent almost a month in Italy, which was great. My mom is from Italy, but she's from the Veneto. I went to Rome, and it's the first time I'd been to Rome since I was, a baby. And I was in Rome for 5 days. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go eat here, and I'm going to eat there, and I'm going to get pizza here, and go to this market and do all these things. And then I thought, well, what am I going to do in between? The thought never even occurred to me that I'm in Rome. I'm going to go to the Vatican. I'm going to go to the Colosseum. And I did all of those things, but it was an afterthought almost. I hate to say that because it's so incredible, but it was. I was there for the food.
Rebecca Wilkins' interest in Italian cuisine came from a much deeper place than her travels. As she mentioned, her mother is from the Veneto region, an area in Italy where her American-born father was once stationed. When she was growing up, Rebecca became immersed in her family's Italian cuisine. As she developed her talents at Herb Saint, she found herself creating more and more Italian dishes with a familiar twist, food that she might have found on her grandmother's table. As you might imagine, all this inspiration made its way into her new restaurant, Gianna. We joined Rebecca in the office of her busy Italian eatery to learn all about it. Rebecca, thank you so much for welcoming me here at your new restaurant. Please tell us about your baby.
Well, my baby's been in the works for a long time. I would say at least for the last 5 years we've been talking about it. Named after my grandmother, so it's named Gianna. So, yeah, the food, it's Italian. It's inspired by food from all over Italy, from our travels, from our research travels, from food I grew up eating, to food that we've been inspired by in restaurants throughout Italy and also in other places.
How old were you when you first traveled to Italy? And your grandmother lives there, right?
Yeah, I think my first trip I was probably 3 months old. My mom's from Italy, so the only person who is not in Italy on that side of the family is my mother. She lives in Massachusetts. But everybody's over there. My grandparents, my aunts, uncles, cousins. My grandparents live in the southern Veneto, which is in northern Italy. It's the region known for polenta and risotto, radicchio. It's the region where you find Venice and Verona. But they live right on the border of Emilia-Romagna. They're not too far from Bologna. So there's a lot of the influence of Emilia-Romagna in my grandmother's cooking. Tortellini and brodo, pinzine, which is a form of gnocco fritto, a form of fried dough that you eat with salumi. You'll see some of that stuff on the menu now, and then you'll see more of it creep up later, too.
What did your grandmother say about a restaurant that is even named after her?
She was very excited. I think the first thing she said was, "My name isn't Gianna," because everyone's called her Janina her whole life. So I said, "No, your name is Gianna." Janina means like little Gianna, you know. So I think that was the first thing she said. But she was really excited. She has told everybody, you know, we go to the market and she tells everybody. And she called me the other morning and said that they had written an article in the paper about the new restaurant. So she was very excited to be in the paper, too.
Tell me about the restaurant interior.
Well, we, as a group, designed this restaurant together. A lot of it was inspired by places we had been and things we had seen and things that we like and are, you know, make us, I don't know, feel something. The mismatched tiles, the marble, all of it is inspired by, you know, our travels and our, I guess, aesthetics as a team. In the beginning, we had an idea for something a little bit more rustic, but I think we're all really happy with how beautiful and bright and airy and clean, and the balance between masculine and feminine, I think really comes through and is really beautiful. You know, the balance between old and new, which I think is the Italian aesthetic today. I actually think that we did a pretty good job of it.
The restaurant itself is beautiful. The buzz about it is just enormous. To me, at least, you are such a young woman with such an enormous mantle on your shoulders now. How does that feel?
Terrifying. I, you know, second guess myself, I think, every second of every day. And nervous, yes, beyond nervous. I mean, I think that, you know, if you're not constantly questioning what you're doing and constantly not doubting yourself, but questioning, then you'll never move beyond what you're capable of right now. I mean, I think that it's important to always push yourself. So I think that although it's really, you know, stressful and nerve-wracking and to open a restaurant, you know, it also helps you push beyond your boundaries, for sure. And then one day you wake up and you're like, oh my God, look, it's a restaurant. It's actually open. This is a real thing. It's still hard to envision until you're actually in it. I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about, like, you know, a year ago how I pictured this place and 6 months ago how I pictured this place. And for a long time, you'd never really think it's going to happen. And then it does. So those moments happen a lot where you're like, deep breath, you know, and look around and, you still doubt yourself, but then you realize that, I don't know, everything you've done along the way you've always been able to make it happen. So this has to work, and you're going to make it happen.
Rebecca Wilkham, executive chef and a partner of Gianna in New Orleans. When did women first begin to receive recognition from the James Beard Foundation? Stay tuned, and we'll explore that topic when we come right back. I'm Poppy Tooker, and you're listening to Louisiana Eats, edible content for Louisiana food lovers. Louisiana Eats is brought to you with major support from Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen. Do you have a date to dine out for life this year? Thursday, June 6th is this year's official Dining Out for Life Day. For the 25th year, Dining Out for Life, the most important annual fundraiser for Crescent Care's Food for Friends, is encouraging everyone to dine out at a participating restaurant. You can find the full list of participating restaurants at diningoutforlife.com. The link will be on our website as well. I'm serving as celebrity chair for the 8th year, and this year we've decided to expand the one day to an entire week. Catch up with me at our official Dining Out for Life events, starting with our dim sum drag brunch at Maypop Restaurant on Sunday, June 2nd, with cocktails from Monkey Shoulder. The fun continues on Thursday, June 6th, where I'll be hosting a Hendrix Happy Hour from 6 to 8 p.m. at Tableau in conjunction with the opening of Marquis, a Le Petit Theater vaudeville-style production featuring Vinsantos and Lady Beast. Friday, June 7th, will continue the celebration from 4 to 6 p.m. at Brennan's Restaurant's Gay Pride Happy Hour. Don't miss Project Runway's Mondo Guero, savoring the champagne in the Brennan's patio at 5 p.m. Then, on Saturday, June 8th, we'll wrap up the week's celebrations with a pop-up drag brunch at Sobu, complete with a glitter bar from Electra Cosmetics. All events will benefit Crescent Care's Food for Friends, a program that delivers over 39,000 hot meals annually to people suffering from cancer and HIV. They operate a community food bank as well. So come out and join us for this year's Dining Out for Life. You'll find links to all the events on our website at poppytooker.com. Here's this week's culinary quiz question, brought to you with support from Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen. When did women first receive recognition from the James Beard Foundation? Long considered the Oscars of the food world, the James Beard Awards began in 1990. And that year, not a single woman was deemed worthy of a mention. In 1991, Nancy Silverton was named Outstanding Pastry Chef for her work at Los Angeles' Campanile restaurant. Then, the very next year, in 1992, Alice Waters was the first woman to be named Outstanding Chef, and her establishment, Chez Panisse, was designated Best Restaurant in the U.S. Not until 2014 did Nancy Silverton receive her Outstanding Chef of the Year award for her L.A. eatery, Pizzeria Mozza. We have lots of James Beard Award-winning women in New Orleans. In fact, both Rebecca Wilkham and Susan Spicer, who we hear from in this week's episode, are both James Beard Award-winning chefs. It's interesting to note that Susan was named Outstanding Chef in 1993, the year following Alice Waters' award, while relative newcomer Rebecca Wilkham received Outstanding Chef of the Southeast in 2017. But wait, there's a new James Beard award-winning woman in town. Big congratulations to our friend Kelly Fields of Willagene's. On May 6th of this year, she brought home the Outstanding Pastry Chef Award. You go, girl. I'm Poppy Tooker, and you're listening to Louisiana Eats. Chef Susan Spicer is a New Orleans culinary icon. Since 1979, the Unflappable Chef has become one of the city's most celebrated and popular culinary figures. Susan co-founded her flagship French Quarter restaurant, Bayona, in 1990, earning the James Beard Award 3 years later. She's written an award-winning cookbook, appeared on Top Chef, and inspired a character on the HBO series Treme. In addition to Bayona, she's now the owner of restaurants Mondo and Rosedale. Susan, what a treat it is to sit down with you in the Louisiana Eats studio and talk about your amazing journey as a chef. You know, you're one of my great heroes because you were blazing the trail for women in the kitchen just at about the same time I was beginning to entertain a life in food myself. How did this all get started?
Well, as I've said before, I did a lot of things badly until I tried a lot of, looking for something, and I happened into cooking through a girlfriend of mine, and it satisfied all my cravings, really, which was for something creative, something physical, something social. It just hit a lot of things, and, I seemed to have an aptitude for it. It came together like 10 years after I got out of high school. So, a little bit. Come from a family of late bloomers, and, it's taken us a while to find what we do. But it was very natural.
The food was in your blood, though, I think, because your mother
She's a great cook.
Quite a great cook.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think you're known for is your international flair with food. Don't you think that had something to do with how you grew up?
Oh, it had a lot to do with that, yeah. My mom was Danish. She grew up in South America. We lived in the Netherlands where she learned Indonesian cooking. And, yeah, so dining was always an adventure in our family. And I'm one of 7 kids, and we all love food. We all, thanks to my mom. She did it, I say, effortlessly. I mean, she cooked for 9 people every day. She gave a lot of dinner parties, and she never seemed to approach it as if it were drudgery. So that helps.
So you're 26 years old. You figured out the food thing. How does the journey begin?
Well, my first job was with Pamela Calhoun at Gerton's, that lunch restaurant in the ICB Bank building at 300 St. Charles. I think it was 300 or 333 St. Charles, from which we both got fired. But then I started with Danielle Bonneau at the Louis XVI, and that was in the Marie Antoinette Hotel down in the French Quarter on Toulouse Street. And it was really, I think, the first true French restaurant that wasn't French Creole, I would think.
I imagine that the time that you spent with Danielle Bonneau was sort of, in some ways, like a traditional European apprenticeship.
It was. I had to bug him a lot, though. He wanted to ignore me for a while, but I asked a lot of questions, and I would always go up and check out all the books. And I was like, can you use tarragon and mushrooms in the same stuff like that. And he was like, yeah. And then he would start taking me on, like when he would be doing cooking classes or demonstrations or stuff. And then, he would do a couple of things, and then he would go, and now Suzanne is going to show you how to make the crème brûlée. And I would be going like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. And he would go, shut up and do it. So that was kind of his gentle, way of guiding me, was shut up and do it. And then Danielle, well, he went on to become food and beverage manager for Mark Smith in the small hotel local hotel company, and they bought the St. Charles Hotel, and that's when we opened Savoir Faire, which was in 1982, and they gave me my first chef position, which I thought they were nuts, but they said it was just so cool because it was like anything goes. I remember doing brains and eggs, at brunch at Savoir Faire, Moroccan, sort of like a shakshuka kind of thing, but with brains. Danielle would let me do anything I wanted. So it was really fun. That was a real voyage of discovery, my first chef position, and, being, as I say, Charles in charge. It was, it was tough.
Well, with that always comes some startling mistakes. What's something that has stuck with you that you're like, oh my goodness?
It wasn't so much a colossal mistake. It was more just how terrified I was to be the one that people came to, that I was supposed to have all the answers. And I just, just didn't feel like I was that person. It was a
proving
development.
ground.
Yes, it was. It was a proving ground, and it was so hard to finally get to the point where I thought, oh, this is why I'm the chef, because I have standards and I'm willing to stick to them. And, some of these people, they don't feel that same way. Danielle would teach me, that it had to be right. And I realized that it wasn't so much just like my, fabulous creativity or whatever. It was just, having standards and making sure that things were right and being willing to stand your ground. It took a while. It was like a metamorphosis, I guess, is the word I was searching for.
And then you were at the Maison de Ville.
Yeah.
That's where, and you spent a little time working in restaurants in the French Quarter. How do you end up with your own restaurant in the French Quarter?
That happened because the Maison de Ville was just so tiny, and people would get really aggravated, I guess, because it was kind of a hot ticket, at a certain point. In 89, I think, is when I got the Food and Wine Best New Chef thing, which was still kind of I think it was only the second year that they awarded it. That was the start of the whole, celebrity chef, whatever, you want to call it. What it kind of was, and it came with a lot of perks. And it came with a lot of people wanting to go there because they knew your name, not because, for whatever reason. And then people started saying, oh, let's open a restaurant together. I want to put you in a bigger place. I want to do this and that. And then, I met Regina Kiever, and we looked around for some locations to maybe expand, do something bigger. It just kind of came about pretty quickly.
And when did you open?
That was end of March 1990.
And then in no time short, you get the James Beard Award. 1993.
3 years.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
pretty
Which
good, Susan.
no, believe me, I was very, very proud of that.
You forged the way. You win the James Beard Award, and Bayona
Ta-da!
just becomes one of the things that New Orleans is really proud of.
Well, thank you.
From those very early days, it was the place to go.
Well, and now the challenge is, it's a little bit ironic because when you have been around for a long time, when you're trying to hire staff and stuff, it's kind of like, we don't want to go work for that old place, So you have to try to stay relevant without being trendy, but I still like to hear my chefs, new ideas. And even if I go like, I wouldn't make that myself, but let's check it out and see. Oh, all right. That's delicious. It's good. I wouldn't have thought of it. So I try to keep an open mind, and we do try to, evolve. I don't want to just rest on laurels.
After a decade successfully operating her French Quarter restaurant, Bayona, in 2000, Susan focused her energies on a new venture in the Central Business District. Along with two partners, Susan opened a small bistro called Herb Saint, stewarding it through its early years. Running the kitchen was an up-and-coming young chef named Donald Link.
Yeah, so Donald had worked for me before, and then he moved back to town, and I was kind of casting around for something else to do in the warehouse district because it was really starting to percolate down there, and I liked it. I had great confidence in Donald as a chef and a partner, and so it was really a stepping stone for him, and it just got to a point where it was kind of silly. I was at Bayona, and I would come over to Urbsane, and Donald would have been there all day, like working his butt off, and then people would come to me and go like, "Oh, Susan, this was so great, thank you," and it just started to feel uncomfortable to me because he was really the managing partner and the working chef, and so that was good. It became his restaurant, and I still was a partner there till after Katrina.
And then at what point does Mondo come along?
2000? No, 2010. Whoa. Seems like it was earlier than that, but no, June of 2010.
Yeah, because Mondo really became part of the rebuilding of the lakefront.
But when you think, that was already 5 years after Katrina.
You have to think how horrible it was to put it all in context.
Believe me, I remember.
Yes, because that's your neighborhood.
Yeah, that was my house.
Yeah, you had plenty of that. There have been some pretty big bumps. I mean, there was the bump of Katrina.
Yeah,
that was a pretty big
and
bump.
even the
BP
oil spill. That was horrific. That was really horrific.
Has there ever been a time when you thought, maybe I'm just going to quit?
Do I want to just quit?
There never was a time.
No, never
you're not
just
a
like,
quitter.
I'm just going to quit. I would say other challenges of like staffing, And I know that every generation has always said, and we've been saying it for a long time, oh, these kids today and all that, have no work ethic. But, it's hard now even to get people to show up for an interview, or if they show up for the interview and they say they'll come in for a trail, will they show up? They're looking for better work environment, which is good, but it's important for people to participate and give back too. You got to work for things, I think. For me, my deal was just focus on the food, and kind of everything else sort of fell away. I worked with guys that didn't want women in the kitchen and were rude or badgered me or whatever, but I just focused on what I was doing. I thought about the food. I didn't worry so much about what the environment was. You just came in and did the work, and the work was very satisfying, and that's where I got my fulfillment from. It was from doing a good job, and I just never paid that much attention to the rest of it, I guess. But I don't know if that's exceptional or, what.
Thank you, Susan. It was such a pleasure to get to spend this time with you.
Yeah, it's nice.
Thank
We don't
you,
do
Susan.
it that often.
No,
Thank
not
you.
nearly enough. Thank you. Chef and New Orleans icon, Susan Spicer. That's it for this week's edition of Louisiana Eats, edible content for Louisiana food lovers. Have you visited poppytooker.com lately? That's where you'll find not only our full broadcasts, but our quick bites for podcasting or webcasting and special videos from producers Jonathan Evans and Marion Gay. That's all on poppytooker.com. Louisiana Eats is made possible with major support from Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen, Zatarain's, and from Camellia Brand Beans. Additional support for Louisiana Eats is provided by the Shreveport-Bossier Convention and Tourist Bureau and from Dickie Brennan's Steakhouse, a local New Orleans steakhouse serving prime beef and Louisiana Wagyu in New Orleans' French Quarter. Original theme music composed by David Pomerleau and performed by Johnny Sketch and the Dirty Notes. Big thanks to senior producer Joe Schreiner and special projects manager Reggie Morris. And to our business manager and social media maven, Maddie Mullidew. Come visit us anytime in our Louisiana Eats studios at the Southern Food and Beverage Museum. We're on Instagram and Facebook, too. Louisiana Eats is a production of Poppy Tooker Broadcasting.